Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Free. I'm Ryan Kennedy. I'm the pastor here. So good to be with you on a Thursday night. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you've stumbled upon us by accident, well, stick around. You might just enjoy it. If you're wondering what in the heck is Free Spiritual Community all about, we are a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees, and what we do here is break the silence of addiction while creating space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. You can visit us online at freespiritualcommunity.com. We have an app you can check out. It's free to download, by the way. It's called freespiritualcommunity.com. If you go to your app store on your phone, you can download it there and keep up with what's happening here. We always gather on Saturday nights, and sometimes we bring in the guest storyteller not on Saturday nights, but on Thursday nights throughout the week. So that's what we're doing tonight. We have a guest storyteller here, and we'll get to her in just a moment. But what y'all need to know is we're right in the midst of this series called The Grudge. It's on your screen. We're dealing with some of the hard issues, the painful things that you're holding on to. So last week we talked about the theme of I'm over it. You can get over these petty things, the things that happen in the parking lot, or when someone cuts you off in traffic. You can get over these things. You can get over it because of your love for other people. We looked at that scripture in Ephesians. This Saturday, we're going to talk about revenge and why revenge doesn't work. I know it feels good at the time, and you think if you can just get that person back, then you can get over it. Then you can find healing, and revenge never works. It just continues the cycle of violence, and it keeps the violence and the pain in circulation. So let's talk about why revenge doesn't work. And then the last week, we are going to ask the question, can you forgive even your worst enemy? And what does forgiveness look like? What do we do with it? How does it function? How do we practice it? Can you forgive even your worst enemy? Tonight, we have Amy Anderson in the house. She is with us. She's going to share some of her story. I can't wait for y'all to hear some of her story. Amy got sober in 2017. She was raised in this cult until she was 25, ended up getting sober at 27, and she's going to share with us some of her experiences in dealing with the grudge and what it looks like to let go, to be free. Let's welcome Amy. All right, welcome, Amy.
Hello.
Can you hear them clapping in their living rooms?
Loudly.
They just gave you a big standing ovation. I know you can't hear it, but trust me, it happened, didn't it, y'all? Standing O. So, Amy, Amy's going to share with us some of her story, like I just said, and I asked Amy if she would start with just giving us kind of the bigger picture, what recovery looks like, what your life looked like before you got sober, what happened, what it looks like now, just the big picture. And tell us about it.
Thanks. Well,
and thanks for being here.
Absolutely. I'm really, really excited to be here. There's two things that kind of happened separately growing up in my life, and then they kind of collided right at the end. So the first one you kind of touched on is I was raised in a cult. My parents actually were part of it before we were even born. My siblings and I were even born, and so it was our entire life we were raised in it. And it was a type of religion where we weren't really supposed to reach out or interact with people outside of our church. And so I didn't have friends. We didn't go to public school. So I didn't have friends outside of the church. It was just a very secluded, and we were really just all together, not with the outside world. And so growing up like that was difficult. A lot of the things I struggled with in that was that the leadership was seen as God. And so I was being taught that God is loving, God is this, and then the leadership would have very real consequences for unwritten rules. And so it was all very confusing in terms of like growing up with God and in this cult. And I actually didn't leave it when I grew up and went to college. I ended up going to a college where there was we call it a sister church to the one I grew up in. And this lady came and knocked on my dorm door, the first weekend I moved in, and handed me a plate of brownies and was like, church starts at 9:30.
You're like, I'm in. I'm going to church.
Exactly. I didn't have any friends. I didn't know what to do. And so I figured, I'll just do this. I didn't, even at that point, I didn't like it. I didn't really buy into the religion piece of it. I had a very big resentment against it even then, but I didn't know what else to do.
Yeah. And I think people, people don't realize the pull of it. If you grew up with this and you were raised in it, to leave the thing you're raised in, you think, well, when you're 18, how come you just didn't go on your own? Well, because it's part of who you are. To leave the thing you were raised in, not always easy.
Exactly. And so that was going on, and I really didn't have a solid faith in God at all. And then as a separate piece of that, in college, I started drinking very heavily. About my junior year, when I was 20, I started drinking and rapidly became a full-blown alcoholic by the time I'd graduated college. I was about 6 months into my career, and I was a daily drinker, start to finish, of the day. And the problem was that I continued to be successful. I was great at my career. I was well-liked. I did everything well, except I was drinking all the time.
Yeah.
And in 2015, when I was 25, in 1 week, I lost pretty much everything: the job, my living situation, the relationship I was in, all due to drinking. And I started this journey. It ended up being about a 2-year journey to quit drinking. And I started going to a 12-step program, and I really got what was going on there, and it really helped me, but I couldn't get sober because I couldn't trust God. Yeah. I had this huge grudge I really lumped God and religion in together, and all that pain and just the confusion and the that I had there kept me from getting sober until 2017, when I finally just figured out, what I needed to do, and I needed to seek God as God.
And so was it, when you talk about that grudge or the resentment, is it because God is manipulative? God is, because you associate it with, again, your past experiences, God is powerful in the worst kind of way. God manipulates. God just puts on rules. Everyone else is bad. We're good. We've got the right answers. They all have the wrong answers.
Absolutely. It was very fear-based for me. God was not to be, dealt with. He just keep God away at arm's length.
So help us understand. And by the way, if you all have questions, Amy is happy to take and engage your questions. So if you do have questions, ask your questions along the way. Danny will throw them on the screen for us, and we will try to engage your questions along the way. But I want people to hear from you because I think this experience is so relatable. Even if you didn't grow up in a cult, even if you don't identify as a recovering alcoholic or drug addict or whatever, we all have these tendencies to hold on to the painful experiences.
Absolutely.
We build shame around them. We can't let go of them. We ask ourselves the question, what do we do with these? And we just hold on to them, and they're hurting us. What did it look like for you to actually deal with the grudge, to let go, and to move on, to move forward?
Yeah, definitely. I, coming out of it, when I started to finally seek God and try to figure this out, I had a lot of anger toward organized religion and the people in it. I had a lot of anger toward leadership, and I would just get in fights with friends over really small things. And it wasn't them I realized I was fighting with. It was this overarching concept of everything that I'd been through and all this anger. And what I really had to do is I had to take a very simple view of God in the beginning, and I had to seek God for God and not for what people say he was. Or say he is. I had to really, honestly, in the beginning, just pray to a power greater than myself. And that's a very, typical thing that people say, I think, in the recovery arena. But it's so true. I can get on board with a power bigger than myself.
Yeah.
And when I started to seek that, I was able to come back to this idea and realize that, I do believe in the God of the Bible. Yeah. But who is that? And what does that look like? Yeah. And I had to start seeking.
So when you say seeking, what does that look like? How do you seek?
Yeah, that was my question too. I had no idea. I was like, all right, I'm ready to go find this God. How do I do it?
Yeah, where do I start?
I had to start very, very, very simple. I went back to church, actually. I picked a church that was across the street from the high school I went to, and I knew I'd engaged with them a little bit in high school. I actually got in trouble for it from the cult. You can't engage with other churches.
You broke the rules, man.
Broke the rules, but, I loved it, and I had met some good people there. So I went back to that church, and I went with the intention to listen to the words of the sermon, and that only. And I started there. And I started meditating quite a bit, actually, and just really, meditation allows, just to listen and to let God, speak to me. And, it doesn't make sense until I began to do it, actually, yeah. But when I was able to sense just, this power of God calming me through meditation, it really, it made me realize, there is a God there.
Yeah.
And the other big thing was prayer. In the 12-step program, my sponsor had me pray all the time for all these different situations. And what I began to realize is that, the prayer began to, help the situations.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
My sponsor had me do the same thing. He said, Ryan, I want to make a suggestion.
Right.
Pray this prayer for 30 days. And I'm like, how in the heck is this going to help anything? Dude, I just explained to you what's happening in my life. And your response, your solution is just go pray for 30 days?
And it works. It's the craziest thing.
It gets us out of here, and it connects us to something.
It does.
Yeah. God works in powerful ways. So Kathy is asking, let's take her question. She says, Amy, was your family also able to break away from the cult? And I had a similar question. I said, how's your relationship with you talked about your mom a little bit. How's your relationship with your mom? So do you want to speak to that?
I would love to. So my parents actually left 2 years before I did. My mom it was my dad had been unhappy with the church for a while, and my mom had really wanted to stick it out. And I'm not sure exactly what transcribed between them, but they did make the decision. I left in 2015, so they probably left in 2013. And you had mentioned my relationship with my mom. That's another place where I really had to work on, a grudge, honestly.
Yeah,
It'd been a rough relationship because of the cult and the way we were raised, and just a little bit because of who she is as a person. We don't mesh well. And I had to begin to see her as a human being. And I had to begin to just a human being, not this woman who had made these mistakes. She's just a human. She's made just as many mistakes as I have,
And when we can get there, I wrote down in my notes when we were talking, you said it allows me, the process of letting go allows me to give people grace and to see them as human beings.
Yes.
And how powerful that is, because when we're holding on to that, they are not human beings. They are bad people. They're the other. We dehumanize them. Mm-hmm. Anything we can do to not give grace. But when we start to do the hard work, the inner work of letting go, we can actually see the people who we used to hate, we used to hold the grudge against, we can see them as human.
Exactly.
Not as perfect people, not people you want to maybe hang out with and go grab lunch with at Applebee's, but human beings, right?
And that's how I really got, over my grudge toward organized religion, too, is just, this isn't a group. I had to get away from seeing all religion as, through the lens of my cult, through the lens of my pain. And I had to start to see, this is Kathy. She sits next to me at church today, and she has 2 kids. This is my friend Erin. I had to get away from, this is a group of people who believe, maybe things that I don't believe. We are all just human beings doing our best to seek hopefully a God of our understanding.
Yeah. And I love what you said, too, when we were talking the other day, when you said, I can hear things now in the church, and it doesn't just really piss me off anymore. I can just walk out and I can say, that's not for me. Didn't love that sermon, didn't love those words, and that's okay.
Exactly.
I don't have to agree with everything. Exactly. And just because I disagree doesn't mean I have to leave an entire community.
Exactly.
You can walk together even when we disagree on some things. That's a beautiful concept. And talk about, too, you said something really powerful, the removal of the drama.
Yes.
So that when you would go back home, or when you would be around past people in your life, it was important for you to remove yourself from the drama. And for some of y'all, you're dealing with this right now, because when you go back to those old places, you insert yourself into drama. Maybe it's time to remove yourself.
Yes.
Explain that to us.
So a few years, I moved back here to the Denver area. I was up north, and for a few years after I had left that church and left everything up there, I would go back to visit friends, and I would find myself just obsessively asking questions like, what's going on? Like, I was asking for the drama, tell me all the details of this, that, and the other thing. And it was very unhealthy. It kept me just trapped in this, angry. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to hear all the drama so that I can continue to be mad at this church. And I had to really stop doing that. I had to intentionally not ask what was going on, and just remove myself from that. And I really stopped visiting for a while, and I've gone back to it now because I'm in a healthier place and seeing my friends up there. But just I couldn't want that anymore. I had to let go of it.
Yeah. And last week we talked about that there's a passage in Ephesians chapter 4 that says we can get over it. We can look over these things because of our love. And I don't know about you, but when it comes to some past experiences that I held resentment over, there's so much power in saying, I'm not going to be part of the drama. And I can actually overlook this stuff now because I believe my higher calling is to love people.
Exactly.
And I don't have to insert myself all the time. I don't have to give in to every argument, every debate, every time you feel wronged.
Yes.
You can actually, sometimes it's okay to
Just
do
let
one
it
of
be.
these. Yeah, it's okay. Acceptance.
Yes.
The serenity to accept.
Yes.
I think we had another, Miranda was asking, what kept you coming back for 2 years? I'm assuming coming back to the healthy place of recovery, coming back to 12-step program.
While still trying to get sober, or
I don't. What keeps you coming back for 2 years? I don't know how to. I guess you can interpret that however you like. I don't know. Maybe Miranda, clear that up exactly what you're asking. Give us some clarification. We'll come back to your question. But tell us a little bit about how you. So God used to be this powerful egomaniac, this manipulative God. How do you see God now? What's your concept of God?
I love talking about this because it was a very slow process for me.
Yeah.
But I know I went from this, like, God has an overarching plan for this whole world. He's going to get it done no matter what. Like, if you sin, you're going to be punished. Just this fear-based thing to understanding, God has a plan for the whole world. He also has a plan for me. And it's a very personal plan. And, I'm not, so I kind of like have this mental vision of like a Risk, like the game board. And I'm not just a little pawn on the game board. When I reach out and talk to God, like, he genuinely does care for me. And he genuinely is listening to what is going on in my life and wants the best for me. And I had to get to this place where I understood that when bad things happen, it's not because God's punishing me. Bad things happen because we live in a flawed world. And
Whoa, stop right there. If y'all are taking notes, that's tweet worthy, all right? Say it again. Say that again. Really powerful. Just because of when bad things happen to me, it's not because I'm being punished.
Yeah, God's not punishing me. Like I didn't do anything necessarily wrong or bad. Like I just live in a flawed world and things happen, and God gives me like the grace, and He loves me through it.
So powerful, because I can't tell you how many people say to me, "Man, I just don't know why this is happening to me. I don't know why God is punishing me." Mm-hmm. And it's like, whoa, maybe God's not punishing you. Maybe you got in that car accident because you ran the stop sign. I don't know. Maybe
Right.
that God doesn't have anything to do with that, but God's going to love you through that. God's going to be with you in that moment.
Yeah.
And you said moving from an angry God to a God of love.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That was the key, because I can't think that, there isn't a God who truly knows me.
Yeah.
That wouldn't make sense.
So, Amy, just to kind of close things, and by the way, if you have more questions, we'll take them, but for the one struggling, for the one living in a bit of despair, and by the way, when we were sitting here just a few minutes ago before we went live, we were kind of exchanging pieces of our story, and I said, Amy, I'm kind of jealous because you got sober at 27, and I remember being 27 and having this, what I thought was a pipe dream. By the time I'm 30, I'm not going to drink anymore. By the time I'm 30, I'm going to be sober. And I had no concept of what that meant. I just knew it was causing a problem in my life, and maybe by the time I'm 30, I won't do it anymore. I ended up stopped drinking for the first time at 30, but then I relapsed and didn't get sober until later in my year 30. But Amy got sober at 27. But it was interesting because when I said that, she said, that's interesting because my dream by the time I was 30 was to die.
Yeah.
So talk about going from despair into hope. Can you say just a little bit about that and give someone a good word of hope for those sitting in despair who say, yeah, I know what that's like. I'm there right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That was my plan. I knew my drinking was out of control and I was very physically sick from it. And so my goal was, I didn't want to live any longer like that. And I didn't think I'd get it sober. So my plan was to die. And I had no idea who I was. I had no idea, I had no connection to God. And, in July of 2017, I reached this place of just utter hopelessness. And I had no more plans, no more ideas in my head. I had nothing, no idea what to do. And honestly, I think it was just a God-given moment where I was like, I will just try to do the next right thing, right? And because I'd been in the program for a while, and so I kind of knew. So I was like, I'll just try to do this sober thing, and honestly, I will try to figure out. In my head, I was like, I'll try to figure out the God thing. Yeah. And I had to start so simply and so small, and just really I felt like I needed to take bigger steps than I was taking, but it was the small steps that got me there. Yeah. Maybe today I will try to pray a serenity prayer in the morning. Maybe today, I'll just do, what I need to do and not put a drink in my body one day at a time. And I did that. And slowly, I was able to just figure out who I was in God, who I was through God's eyes. And it gave me an identity and it gave me a hope. And if you're really struggling, my only thing is it's okay if it's going to take time. It took me a really long time. And don't feel like the small steps that you're taking right now are not working, because it took me probably 1,000 very small steps of faith before I finally got to the point where I loved my life again. Yeah.
And I love how you described your whole journey that way, as these simple steps. Mm-hmm. It's not like going out and just trying to change the world all in one day. It's these simple, maybe I can pray today. Yeah. Maybe I can let go of a little bit today. Maybe I don't have to hate them anymore. Mm-hmm. So simple steps along the way. I think that's what this spiritual journey is about. It's why in recovery we say it's about progress, not perfection. In the spiritual journey, you don't just hit an end point. You don't arrive. We're always on the journey. And we do that forever, and we do it together. Molly says, God brought you to it, so he will bring you through it.
Yes.
How about that? Amen, Molly. Thank you for sharing that with us. And Matt's on tonight. He says, love you, Amy.
Hey, Matt.
What up, Matt? So I think we'll close things down. Y'all can continue to interact with Amy. Amy, thank you so much for being here. If people have more questions, will you engage with them tonight or tomorrow at some point on this thread?
Yeah.
So if you all have questions for Amy, drop them. If you have comments, if you want to cheer her on, drop some comments in the comment section. And by the way, if you are looking for a place to engage in the spiritual journey together, I want you to know you're welcome here at Free, and I really mean that. And what I mean by that is, in this community, we don't do shame. You can check shame at the door. It's not welcome here. Your stories are welcome here. All of you is welcome here. And you may say, yeah, but you don't really know my past. Yeah, I don't care. We still walk it together. We walk towards healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. We believe God is in that with us. God is leading us somewhere different than the past. We're moving forward. And if you don't know, the wagon is a central image in this community. And I won't tell the full story of the wagon now, but what you need to know is, if you fall off the wagon of life, we don't kick the wounded. Like I said, we don't do shame. We walk this journey together. We will help pick you back up. We're going to welcome you in here, no matter what your story is. And we're going to do it together. We're going to walk together. We don't do shame together. We believe in things like love, grace, compassion, and forgiveness. Those are the things that set us free, and those are the things that are so freely given by God. You are welcome here. Speaking of welcome, I hope you join us again this Saturday night for part 2 dose of the Grudge series, where we are going to explore revenge and why revenge doesn't work. It never works. It keeps the pain and violence in circulation. All right, y'all. So good to be with you tonight. So much grace and peace to you, my brothers and sisters, my brothers from other mothers and sisters from other misters. Good to be with you. We'll see you on Saturday.